Yeah, very good morning, my dear friends and my colleagues. I am Dr. Sepuri Krishnamohan, endocrinologist, Sepuri Diabetes and Endocrine Center, Kurnool. I am extremely happy to be with you on the FB Live, and today we are going to talk about the management of diabetes in the patient suffering from diabetes during the Ramadan fasting or the Ramzan fasting, which is known as Roja in the colloquial language, or Sawan in the Western language. It is called Sawan, and we call it Roja here. So it is not only for the patients who are suffering from diabetes, it is for a general mass communication for all the Muslim patients who would like to fast, because during this hot summer, one is not supposed to get dehydrated because of the hot summer. So yeah, this is, I think it is for all the people, all the Muslim friends. My dear sisters and my Muslim brothers who want to fast during this particular this year 2021 Ramadan. So mostly, I think, to the best of my knowledge, it is falling on April 12. I think at April 12 the fasting starts, and hopefully ends by May 12. It all depends on the appearance of the moon actually. So, I would like to just broadly go with the terminology used during this the holy the Ramadan fasting actually. So, I may kindly be excused and pardoned if my pronunciation of certain technical terms are a little bit wrong. Please, I may kindly be excused and pardoned, please. It's an appeal to all my dear Muslim sisters and brothers. So we generally we have some terminology like the pre-dawn meal. What we take is called sairi, or it is called sahur actually. So likewise, when we start fasting, and what we eat before fasting, the pre-dawn meal is called sairi or sahur. Likewise, the fasting prolongs for a period of 14 to 16 hours sometimes, because there is a long day and a small night relatively during summer period in our country. Especially I am talking to the context of our area, our people, our country. So the when we stop the fasting in the evening, most probably somewhere around some 7 o'clock or 6:45, it is called iftar. Iftar, and usually our Muslim friends they break the fast by eating khazur, that is dates. So all the patients suffering from diabetes can take this particular khajur when they break the fast, because it is written in the Holy Quran by His Highness Holy the Prophet Muhammad. He said, and he did it also. He did it while breaking the fast. He used to take dates, khajur. So usually our Muslim friends break the fast by taking 2 or 3 khajurs, and the whole month they fast actually, and 30 days of fasting, and at the end of the fasting we call it Eid al-Fitr. I think that is the correct terminology. And this year it falls in between April 12th and May 12th. So more or less we can call it in the modern medical technology like the Ramadan holy fasting, the Roza is called an intermittent fasting for 14 to 16 hours actually. So that is what is we call nowadays, the technical term is intermittent fasting. Okay, then we get into the topic, the main topic of the management of diabetes during the Ramadan. Either it is type 1 diabetes or type 2 diabetes or the other types of diabetes also. And I shall briefly go through the the introduction part. The fasting, the holy month of Ramadan constitutes one of the five pillars of the Muslim faith actually. However, it could be challenging for people with diabetes and also their care providers, that is the doctors and the healthcare professionals and the caregivers also, that is the paramedical staff also, due to the potentially increased risk of acute complications in patients suffering from diabetes, such as the hypoglycemia, that is the blood sugars going down, and the hyperglycemia, that is the blood sugars shooting up during the Ramadan fasting, and even the most common problem during this particular, if it is winter, it is not a problem at all, but during this hot summer, so the temperature has peaked up already to 42 degrees. So the patients who are on their holy fasting, they may likely to get into dehydration, which may lead to diabetic ketoacidosis, which is a serious condition. That is, hyperglycemia with dehydration always leads to diabetic ketoacidosis. That is what is called an emergency DKA. So we have to see to that the Muslim brothers and sisters who have diabetes should not get into these complications of either hypoglycemia or hyperglycemia or the dehydration or the diabetic ketoacidosis. And if it is estimated that the total Muslim population worldwide consisted about 24.4% of the world population. That is, it is almost 1/4 of the population, world population. It is 25% of the population in the world is the Muslim population. And based on the recent ninth atlas of the International Diabetes Federation, that is IDF, the 2019 report on the prevalence of diabetes is of somewhere around 463 millions worldwide. That is the estimated figures recently as back as dating back to 2019. So that is 9.1% of the worldwide population is suffering from diabetes, and one can estimate that almost 1/4, that is 112 million people with diabetes worldwide may choose to fast during Ramadan, because the 112 million people suffering from diabetes are the Muslim community people. So almost 112 million people all over the world, they choose to fast, and we have to be very, very, very cautious enough to prevent the complications, to guide them in a proper way, like patient counseling and the change in the medication and the change in the diet, that is called MNT, that is medical nutritional therapy and all. So although the illness constitutes exemption from fasting, so there are certain exemptions for fasting. A vast majority of Muslims with diabetes, they do not consider themselves unwell, and they are exempted and they choose to fast in spite of the advice of the doctor not to fast also. In my the 29 or 30 or 3 decades of experience, I have seen patients as an endocrinologist. Even I tell them that please do not fast, because your blood sugars are very high, because you are on insulin or something else, your age will not cooperate. But still most of the people, they resort to fast, and very fortunately I think by the grace of Almighty, the Allah, they keep well. Most of the times I have never seen patients getting into very serious complications or breaking the fast or something else. Nothing will happen. That's a miracle. So miracles have no scientific explanation actually. So this should be respected, and such patients should be supported to help them very fast. And to tell you very honestly, the American Diabetes Association, which is the supreme authority for the guidelines or the management or the prevention of diabetes, the ADA, American Diabetes Association, strictly says no Muslim suffering from diabetes can go for the Ramadan fasting. That's what the scientific evidence says, the evidence based medicine says. Muslims are not supposed to fast because it's a long duration. They may get into complications like low blood sugars, high blood sugars, and dehydration, and they may get into coma. They may have to be like hospitalized, and they may have to break their fast. Keeping all this in view, the ADA says please do not fast. But still, most of the Muslim population, they would like to like choose fasting only. And according to the International Diabetes Federation, which is there in 225 countries, that has recently issued the IDF DAR. DAR means diabetes and the Ramadan fasting. IDF and the diabetes and Ramadan fasting 2021 guidelines. We need to follow that particularly. That is how safely we can see that the patient navigates safely during the whole month of the holy fasting, the Ramadan fasting. And now the main aim of any diabetes management is to control the symptoms, prevent deterioration in the glycemic control, and prevention of the acute complications, which I repeatedly mentioned: the hypoglycemia, the low blood sugars, the hyperglycemia, the high blood sugars, the dehydration, that is getting dehydrated, and the prevention of the diabetic ketoacidosis, that is a serious condition like the DKA or the HHS, that is the hyperglycemic hyperosmolar state. So our aim is to prevent all these complications, and this is the key even in the management of diabetes during Ramzan actually. So this is nothing different actually. Here are some of the significant tips and suggestions that I am going to give you that approaches for the people with diabetes and who are fasting during Ramadan. So what is more important is as an endocrinologist, what I stress upon this particular this thing is the patient education on the basics of diabetes is very, very important. All the patients who are suffering from diabetes should be educated well in advance about the symptoms of hypoglycemia and to stop the fast, that is the Ramadan fasting, in case of symptoms of hypoglycemia, in case of hyperglycemia, in case of dehydration, in case of acute serious illness which may occur, like when the blood sugar is the below 70 milligrams per deciliter, that is defined as hypoglycemia. When the patient is in hypoglycemia, that is when the blood glucose level is below the level of 70, one has to stop the fasting and take something, because otherwise he will end up in hypoglycemic coma. That is, there are again 3 stages: level 1 hypoglycemia, level 2 hypoglycemia, level 3 hypoglycemia. So the figures are very important, and in this context I would like to make a humble request to all my the Muslim friends that majority of the patients, they think that when you check your blood sugar during Ramadan fasting, they feel that it is as bad as breaking the fast. So in fact it is not. As per the Quran, as per the Holy His Highness Prophet Muhammad, so measurement of blood sugars is not haram actually. It is very good for the management of diabetes during the Ramadan fasting. We can safely navigate our patients to travel safely during the 30 days of Ramadan fasting. So blood sugar management is not considered haram by Holy Quran. So then the hyperglycemia, that is, if the blood sugars are more than 250 or 300, one has to stop the fasting, and this is very important. And it's very important to inform the patients that the blood glucose testing during Ramadan fasting does not break the fast. That's what I told you. It is not considered as breaking the fast. A common misconception by the Muslim community all over the world. It is not pertain to India. Wherever the Muslims are, all over the world, they think that the doing a blood test during Ramadan fasting is almost breaking the Ramadan fasting, but in fact it is not so. And the blood glucose should be regularly monitored during fasting, especially those who are on insulin or the insulin secretagogues like the sulfonylureas or the non-sulfonylurea secretagogues. There are certain drugs, I'll tell you. And now I am going to tell the category of the patients who are not supposed to fast. So following are the very high risk categories of people who should avoid definitely the Ramadan fasting. And out of first is severe hyperglycemia, severe hypoglycemia within the 3 months prior to Ramadan. That is, the patients who have encountered a serious hypoglycemic episode prior to 3 months of this Ramadan fasting should not fast because of the fear of the hypoglycemia, again getting into hypoglycemia. And the second is the severe the hyperglycemia with an average blood glucose of more than 300 milligrams per deciliter, or the glycated hemoglobin, that is the 3 months average of the blood sugar, the preceding 3 months, that is the HbA1c, if it is more than 9 or 10, you are not supposed to fast at all. And a history of recurrent hypoglycemia or hypoglycemia unawareness, they are not supposed to fast. And diabetic ketoacidosis and HHS, that is hyperosmolar hyperglycemic state, within the 3 months prior to Ramadan are also not supposed to fast. And if there is any acute illness, like it's like in the COVID pandemic, one gets contracted with this particular COVID-19 infection, he becomes ill and acutely ill and he becomes very serious, gets admitted to the hospital. These people are not supposed to fast. And the people who perform the intensive physical labor during this particular the hot temperatures under the sun, they are not supposed to fast. And the biggest contraindication is pregnancy. Actually, pregnancy is the one with the diabetes, that is either the pregnancy with the type 1 or the pregnancy with the type 2 diabetes mellitus, that is what we call the pre-gestational diabetes or the gestational diabetes. They are not supposed to fast. And the patients who are on the chronic this continuous dialysis, either the hemodialysis or peritoneal dialysis or not, that is the patients with severe heart disease or severe the chronic liver disease or severe renal impairment, that is the kidney problems, they are not supposed to fast. And the patients with significant dementia, that is loss of memory, that is forgetfulness, the patients with cognitive deficits, that is they who don't remember anything, either it is presenile dementia or the frank Alzheimer's disease, which affects the brain and in the old age, they are not supposed to fast because they don't know when the sahri or sahur is, when the iftar is, and when they are supposed to break the fast, when they are supposed to take the food and all, they don't remember properly. So these are all the categories of the people who are not supposed to fast as per the evidence-based medicine. And let us come to the therapeutic options for fasting patients with type 2 diabetes during Ramadan. So that includes mainly the lifestyle modification, that is what we call the diet and the exercise, and the reduction in the weight management, and the medical nutritional therapy and the medications actually. So now we'll come to the lifestyle modification actually, which is called the diet and exercise, the medical nutritional therapy, and the dietary patterns during the patients for diabetes that during this holy Ramadan fasting. The medical nutritional therapy is a term where the counseling is given either by the what is to be taken, what foods are to be avoided, and what foods to be taken during the Ramadan fasting. That is prior to the pre-dawn meal, that is prior to Sahri or the Sahur, or the post iftar. The one is supposed to not have the oily food, that is the mostly the non-vegetarian should be avoided, because non-vegetarian that leads to lot of thirst, and they have to the toughest part of this the fastings is the holy Ramadan fasting, because they cannot take food, they cannot take fluids, even the saliva, that is they cannot even swallow the saliva, that is the toughest part. So please try to avoid all the oily foods in the morning, and take lot of fruits, lot of proteins, and even carbohydrates are encouraged during this the Ramjan. They can take a lot of carbohydrates, they can take lot of proteins, and a lot of fruits and vegetables and leafy vegetables and pulses, cereals and all. They are very much, and they are encouraged to drink fluids, not only the water. They can take the buttermilk in plenty, like they can take this particular the ragi ganji, or even the lemon water, which will prevent the thirst actually. So this is all to be done prior to this the iftar meal, the sahri meal, the sahur meal. And when it comes to this particular iftar you have to break the fast traditionally by taking the dates, the khajur, because the Prophet Muhammad did that, and he has directed all the Muslim community, all the Muslim religion to follow this tradition, because Holy Quran says it is always better to break the fast with dates and khajur. And scientifically also, when you take these dates or khajur, they give you the energy instantly. The dates, if you take 2 or 3, maximum is 4. You cannot go beyond 4. When the patient is suffering from diabetes, the patient is not suffering from diabetes, they can take any number of dates. It's not a problem. But when it comes to diabetes, 2 or 3 or 4, maximum is 4 dates one can consume. And what it does is instantly it releases the energy, and it gives some sort of fuel to the person who has been fasting for the last 14 or 15 hours. So that is very important. So after that, and they can take some food, and that also what they take in the morning, like more of dal, more of the curd, more of the vegetables, and more of the pulses, cereals, and whole grains and all. Everything they can even take these sprouts in the morning. So this is the best meal for even the pre-dawn meal, or the post-dusk meal, that is iftar, that is what is called. So this is the medical nutritional therapy that is to be given by the healthcare professionals, or the registered dietitians, or the nutritionists, that is. And then the strategies should include the principles of healthy eating behaviors and preventive methods for hypoglycemia, the proper portion intake, and the portion control as well as possible incorporation of the physical activity after meal. So you should the time is like it is something like 16 is to 8 hours. That is 16 hours of fasting, wherein the patient is in the fed stage for only for 8 hours. That is after iftar until the Sahri, that is the period is only 8 hours. and most of the time 18 double the period, 16 hours they are going to observe this fast by not taking fluids, by not taking any food, by not taking even their saliva. That is the toughest part of it. So one should be very cautious to take lot of fluids before and after the Ramzan fasting actually. That is before the Sahri and post iftar. That is after the iftar. They should take lot of fluids. Not only the water, the lemon water, the buttermilk, and the barley water and the ragi ganji what we traditionally take. It is all very good for health. Though patient gets nourished, though dehydrated, he'll be adequately hydrated. So this is very important. So it is actually recommended to break the fast on dates. That's what I said. And because Prophet Muhammad did it according to the Holy Quran. And dates have a low glycemic index provided it is consumed in small quantities. That's what I said. So if you take 2, 3 or 4, maximum is 4 dates, it will not have an impact on the blood sugars. Or else if you take lot of dates like 10 to 15 dates, the blood sugars will spike and the glucose levels will shoot up like anything. So then again it's a problem for the patients. We should see to that as clinicians, as the physicians, as the endocrinologists, as the diabetologists. It's our duty to see to that our patients they remain safe during this whole month of Ramzan until the Eid al-Fitr, that is. And then coming to the physical activity and the very important term, I think Taraweeh prayers. If I am right, okay, it's okay. If I am not right by pronunciating this particular Taraweeh prayers, the prayers which are done during the after the iftar, the Taraweeh prayers during the Ramzan after iftar meal involves repeated cycles of rising, kneeling, and bowing and bending, and they should be considered the one type of the exercises actually the daily routine as part of the daily routine exercises. It's something like a physical exercise. We can definitely consider it as the physical exercise. This is called the post iftar meal, the prayers, that is called the Taraweeh prayers. And the physical activity should be encouraged in all people with diabetes and with who have the normal levels and maybe maintained during the month of Ramzan actually. So and coming to this, we have finished the lifestyle management, that is medical nutritional therapy and the dietary aspects, and we have finished this the exercise part, and coming to the glucose lowering medications. So now the role of the doctor comes quite evidently in the this particular part of this my talk. I am going to talk about the medications, that is glucose lowering medications, and it is recommended that the decisions to start a new glucose lowering medication should be made in advance to start before the start of Ramadan fasting. So you cannot start abruptly a new drug just a day before Ramzan fasting. So the patient must be accustomed to this particular drugs at least prior to 4 to 8 weeks of the beginning of the Ramzan fasting actually. And the dose adjustments, if any, should be done accordingly, especially in case of hypoglycemia and or tolerability becomes a concern during fasting actually. See, adjustments of the in the dose titration, that is if the patient is on insulin, we generally advise the patient not to fast, and the patient particularly he chooses to fast, so we reduce the dose of insulin actually. We go for if the patient is on biphasic premixed human insulins, we go for the analogs, that is the designer ones, which have the very less tendency to get into hypoglycemia. And the next part is the medication should take care to avoid the hypoglycemia and the hyperglycemia. So we should tailor the particular the dosage or the selection of the medication for the patient who is about to fast. Should be like something, he should not get into hypoglycemia or he should not get into hyperglycemia. So that is the role of clinician is so important in this particular part to help the patient to travel safely during the 30 days of the holy Ramadan fasting actually. And suboptimal adherence to the medications, the fear of hypoglycemia, the medication adverse events and lack of access to medication should be intensified and addressed prior to Ramadan fasting. And now I am going to talk about the medication changes, if any, during Ramzan. So I'll talk about the medicines actually. So the commonly used anti-diabetic medication is the metformin. Per se, if the patient is on only metformin, you don't need to change the total daily dose of metformin, because metformin has got extra pancreatic actions at the level of muscle, at the level of liver, at the level of fat cells. So it does not interfere with this the pancreatic actions, and it does not increase the secretion of insulin, and will never let the patient down with hypoglycemia. So the patient is on metformin, ask the patient to continue metformin as it is, right? And when it comes to the latest drugs, the SGLT2 inhibitors, I would like to advise the patients to avoid SGLT2 inhibitors, because they have got a tendency like the mechanism of action is similar to that of the asthmatic diuretics. So the patient may get dehydrated, and the patient may get into a condition called the euglycemic diabetic ketoacidosis, the euglycemic ketosis, the euglycemic DKA. So I personally feel, as an endocrinologist, as a senior endocrinologist, I feel the SGLT2 inhibitors must be stopped prior to the fasting for the patients who are suffering from type 2 diabetes. And I don't think there is no dose adjustments for SGLT2 inhibitors. Please stop the SGLT2 inhibitors when the patient decides to fast. And coming to the GLP-1 receptor agonist, so rarely we use this particular GLP-1 receptor agonist, and no dose change is usually required, but the patient should be established on a stable tolerated dose a few weeks prior to the Ramadan fasting. So this is very important for any drug actually. You cannot initiate a new drug just prior to the Ramzan fasting, and the patient should come to the doctor at least 4 to 6 to 8 weeks prior to Ramadan fasting, and get his the blood sugars, all the parameters, including the blood sugars and the lipid profile and the kidney parameters and the serum electrolytes and everything, the ECG. They must go for a thorough profile and see to that he doesn't get into complications. And you can after that only you can give a nice prescription during the Ramadan fasting, and it should be followed at least 1 to 2 months prior to the Ramzan fasting actually. So coming to the DPP4 inhibitors, this particular portion I'm referring not to the patients, but I am referring to the clinicians or the healthcare professionals who give this who deal with the treatment of diabetes. So DPP4 inhibitors, so there is no dose change as far as DPP4 inhibitors are concerned, like starting from the vildagliptin to saxagliptin to the sitagliptin to the linagliptin, any gliptin, because it does not cause the hypoglycemia, as it is extra pancreatic in action. So you don't need to titrate the dose of the DPP4 inhibitors unless the patient is on insulin or some sulfonylurea like glimepiride or this thing and all. And when it comes to the sulfonylureas, the best thing as far as sulfonylureas is, if the patient is taking glibenclamide or glipizide, it is better, it is safe to stop them during the Ramadan fasting. And we can encourage especially the molecule glycoside. Actually, it is the drug of choice during Ramzan because of its the half plasma life, short half plasma life. So one can take one pill, that is either 40 milligram or the 80 milligram prior to Sairi, and one tablet likewise after the iftar. So one can take the low doses of glimepiride also. Once a day it is enough, like 1 mg of glimepiride or 2 mg of glimepiride. But it's better to take after iftar only, because all the sulfonylureas, they got the tendency to lower the blood sugars and they may interfere with the holy fasting, and because of the drug one should never break the fast. So my intention is all the time, with my vast experience I am telling you, it's better to take the sulfonylureas. If it is better to take away the sulfonylureas. If the patient is continuing the sulfonylureas, you have to select only two, that is gliclazide first choice and the second choice is glimepiride. So these drugs have to be taken after the iftar, so that they have got a sumptuous staunch meal after iftar, taking the dates, taking the fruits, taking the full meal. The large portion of the food is consumed only after iftar, because early morning no patient, no individual can take the food, the pre-dawn meal so properly, because we are not habituated to that type of the eating the meal so early in the morning, like before 4 o'clock. So the main meal is considered to be the post iftar meal, is considered to be the very main meal. So then the drugs of choice, what I suggest is, number one is gliclazide, or number two is the glimepiride. If it is gliclazide, it has to be given twice a day, and the extended preparations have come also. So then you can either go for 30 milligram of gliclazide extended release, or the 60 milligram of gliclazide extended release, or the glimepiride. Actually, it is to be given post iftar only, once a day dose, that is ideal. And the thiazolidine, what we have is the pioglitazone, and usually no dose changes are required when the patient is on pioglitazone, and taken with either iftar or sairi, preferably with a larger meal. That's what I said, which is usually the iftar meal is the largest meal, and it will take 10 to 12 weeks of maximal effect to see the efficacy of the pioglitazone. Therefore, consider starting a few weeks prior to the start of Ramadan. That's what it refers to all the drugs that I have mentioned actually. And they reduce the dose or stop this particular the sulfonylureas used along with this thiazolidine, because they may actually lead to the severe hypoglycemia. So if the pioglitazone used along with the sulfonylureas, either you have to reduce the dose of the sulfonylureas or discontinue sulfonylureas. And coming to insulin, this is per se I am telling you, the patients who are insulin are definitely not supposed to fast as far as the evidence-based medicine goes. And if they want to fast, they should be switched over to either the dose titration, down titration must be done. Suppose the patient is taking 20 units 2 times a day, you should make it 10 units 2 times a day. That is, you have to down titrate the dose of insulin. And the best thing is to switch over to the insulin, designer insulins or the analog insulins which have come into the market. Little bit costlier, but they will not let you down with hypoglycemia. And this is important. And coming to the pregnant women with diabetes or the gestational diabetes, again gestational diabetes is divided into pre-gestational diabetes, that is the patient is got diabetes, either the patient is suffering from type 1 diabetes or type 2 diabetes from the beginning, so they become pregnant, and again is gestational diabetes, that is any degree of glucose intolerance seen during the pregnancy is defined as the gestational diabetes. Most of the guidelines say that the Ramzan fasting should be like not advised for pregnant women during this Ramadan. This is the most of the international guidelines, not most, all the international guidelines per se, they say pregnant woman, the Muslim pregnant woman, so the should not fast during Ramadan fasting, and fasting becomes haram actually for them, because in spite of the advice they get into some complications. That's haram, that's considered haram actually. So despite the clear religious and clinical guidance, alarming reports of 60 to 90% show that pregnant and lactating women fast during Ramadan. This is the quite surprising aspect. So, in spite of the evidence-based medicine, in spite of the recommendations of the international guidelines, international bodies like the American Diabetes Association, like the International Diabetes Federation, or the American College of Endocrinology, or the American Association for the Clinical Endocrinologists, that is AAS, or even the European Society for the Study of Diabetes, or even our Indian RSSDI, the Research Society for the Study of Diabetes in India. What all these say, the pregnant woman they should not fast, but to my surprise, around some 60 to 90% of the pregnant women also fast. That is a point to be taken. Okay, and coming to hypoglycemia. Hypoglycemia is by far the most common concern for people with diabetes observing Ramzan fasting. So, diabetes self management and education and support, that is called DSMES, that is diabetes self management education and support for prevention, and the treatment could serve a good tool to minimize the hypoglycemic episodes during the Ramzan fasting. And many patients admit to a do-it-yourself approach to diabetes management during Ramzan, largely due to lack of awareness, lack of counseling, thus risking their health, the health during fasting. And many patients attempt to simply endure the difficulty in controlling the blood sugar levels within a defined time period for more than 30 days. And therefore, from a pragmatical viewpoint, although patients' determination for fasting should be respected and taken into consideration, avoiding the risk of the very severe complications should be in priority for the practicing clinicians during the current pandemic, actually the COVID pandemic, which is again the second wave. We are into the second wave actually, but so one has to be very careful, and ample patient education should be provided about the effects of fasting and diabetes, how to approach the management and the effects of medication, etc. must be counseled by the clinician very patiently. For all it's all for the clinicians, starting from the primary care physician to the endocrinologist. It is our duty to devote and dedicate some time to these patients who want to fast, and thus it is always crucial to perform a pre-Ramadan assessment for the purpose of education, patient self-empowerment, and the medication adjustments and the general advice, all with the aim to ensure a safe Ramadan travel and a safe Ramadan journey and a safe Ramadan experience. Therefore, all the patients with diabetes will have a potential for long-term health dividends, that is the reflecting as a reduction in the risk of complications and improvement in physical and mental health and general well-being. And I think I have covered in nutshell, starting from what is the Ramzan fasting, when it comes, and how many days it is, like 30 days, and I have finished talking about the technical terms like the Sairi or the Sahur or the Iftar and the Eid al-Fitr and all the technical terms used during this particular Roza. We call it Rosa, and some call it, the English people call it the San, Sawn. So with this, I take leave of you, my friends. I am Dr. Sepuri Krishnamohan, Senior Endocrinologist, Sepuri Diabetes and Endocrine Center, Kurnool. Thank you so much for patient listening, and thank you once again. Thank you.